Good evening. It's nice to be here on a Thursday night with everybody. For those I haven't met, my name's Fusho. So happy to be bowing and chanting with you. This monthly opportunity is really special. And I find it constantly evolves. The way that we think about atoning and being at one with, and the whole ceremony itself constantly opens up and opens up and opens up. And it was so sweet to me to hear all of it, the chanting, but the namus were quite beautiful and really sounded like a stream flowing. Perhaps because I was recently reading Shunryu Suzuki's book, which is newish, called Becoming Yourself, and its focus is on the precepts. And there is a path class for those of you that know or don't know that the Zendo is offering, that is studying the precepts, and it's 2 years, led by Shunryu Roshi and teachers, and it's been really nice to just take the time to investigate all of the precepts. And so I was looking, and there's tons of books that are recommended, and we can find some of them on our website, and you can, if you're not in the path class, you can certainly ask about the reading list. I think we'd be happy to share. But it is a book, I think, put together by some nuns about Shunryu Suzuki, just sharing thoughts and quite a bit about the precepts, and about taking refuge and becoming one with everything. This is what we are doing and bowing to. And he says in this book that namu means to take refuge, and in Japanese it means to plunge into something, which to me is such a perfect literal act that we're doing while we're chanting it, to just plunge in and become one. And he says when we become one with it, with all it that's out there, with everything, there is no communion or interrelationship because it's just one. And that is to completely take refuge in its true sense. And so there's all different interpretations and ways of talking about becoming one and the precepts. And even just translation can make all the difference. So it's really nice to have these different versions to kind of look at and compare and see what resonates and what doesn't. But about this plunging into something, he says, we say you cannot bring up water in a basket. So if you put a basket on the water, the basket will sink. And that's what happens. As long as you're making a dualistic effort, you're a basket and you can't do anything. You're full of holes, and the holes are you. And he says, we say murochi, and that's wisdom with no holes. But our wisdom is whole wisdom, wisdom with holes. And murochi means no holes wisdom. But for us, no holes wisdom is just to dip a basket in the water. And while it's in the water, there are no holes. So that image of the namu plunging into something is quite lovely if we can allow ourselves to really just get wet without any holes. That is namu, to take refuge. And that is how we practice zazen. This is the interpretation of precepts and the understanding of our zazen, he says. And so the path class, and once a month here, and every summer, almost every summer, we offer a way to explore the precepts. and a way to investigate them as our life and as we are in the world and with ourselves. And this is a beautiful kind of way of sort of sweating it all out. I think tonight that's what we're doing, sweating it out for sure, right? And I know in the Path class now they are working on the 3 pure precepts, getting ready to talk about those. And on their website, on our website, they're translated as not knowing, thereby giving up fixed ideas about myself and the universe. And this is ceasing from evil, bearing witness to the joy and suffering of the world. This is doing good. And loving myself and others. This is doing good for others. So our translation that we have for the 3 pure precepts are ceasing from evil, doing good, and doing good for others. Doesn't that sound simple? Easy to do? And Shunryu Suzuki's book, I really like the translation of the 3 pure precepts, which is embracing good behavior, and embracing good deeds, and embracing all beings and saving them, which is quite different than ceasing, or is it? This idea of embracing as opposed to ceasing. What if we were to embrace these ideas and wanting to do good, as opposed to beating ourselves up about what we're not supposed to do? I think that's quite nice. He says, by reflecting on ourselves and respecting the precepts and the rules, we will know a direction for our effort that isn't self-centered, and we will have the right orientation for our life. And that is how and why we practice Zen, and how things have been developed. So I've been helping teach the precept class in the summer when people take refuge and become Buddhas for a few years now. And it's really common for people to come in with an idea of the precepts as rules or commandments, things that we are supposed to do and things that we are not supposed to do, as a rigid kind of black and white way to live our life. And then as we look closely and really turn towards ourselves, the more we can investigate these natural, universal guidelines, the more we realize, oh, maybe it's not so black and white. You know, and as soon as we start to define what I am supposed to do and what I'm not supposed to do, as a rule, it gets pretty complicated. And we can notice, hopefully, oh wait, I'm separating. I'm not in the water right now. I'm this basket trying to figure stuff out. And so the way that we work with them is we try to investigate, go deeper, ask, what is that? What is that? Why is that inside me? Where was that coming from? And would that be true in a different experience, in a different circumstance? Probably not. You never know. It's hard to say. A while back I spoke about the precept not discussing the faults of others. That's one of them. That's the 6th precept, the grave precept. And the 7th precept is not praising yourself while abusing others. And some people find that they are very similar, they overlap, but all of them also tend to overlap, we find once we start looking at them. The 7th precept I've really been thinking about. One definition is the Bodhidharma version. Non-elevating oneself and blaming others is the 10 Dharma worlds, which are body and mind in the sphere of the equal Dharma. not making any distinction between oneself and others, is called the precept of refraining from elevating oneself and blaming others. So not non-elevating oneself. I found it challenging to try to think about what I was going to talk about. How am I going to give a talk from an elevated platform, by the way, and pretend that I'm not being elevated here? It's a little tricky right away. Dogen's version is non-elevating oneself and blaming others. Buddhas and teachers realize the absolute emptiness and realize the great earth. When the great body is manifested, there's neither outside nor inside in the emptiness. And when the Dharma body is manifested, there's not even a single square inch of soil on the ground. And then we have, at the Zendo, we have our Zen Peacemakers version. Speaking what I perceive to be the truth without guilt or blame, this is the precept of not elevating oneself and blaming others. So I was thinking about how to do that by giving a talk. And I was sitting on the cushion thinking, it's not going to be your best one, but it'll be all right. And then all of a sudden I realized, wait, I'm going down the spiral of that, of the flip side of that. Shunryu Suzuki, about this precept, says, do not boast of yourself and blame others. When you boast of yourself and blame others, it means you have a very small self. Thank you, and good night. I think we're done here. I think like all of them, when you're looking at one side of it, you can turn it over and look at the other side. So what would be this not elevating on the same side of the coin? You know, I find for myself it's quite tricky because there can easily be a tendency, and I think it's quite common, to do the other side of that, which is this blame and guilt and shame and trying to say, not good enough. Who am I to do that? Who am I to elevate myself? The underside of that is not, oh, I'm a nobody, I'm not good enough, but it's an easy trap to fall into. And I think, interestingly, when we look around us and we see these people in our culture, which is all about elevating people, who are blaming others and elevating themselves and saying they know, usually, I mean, it's quite common underneath that is a lot of insecurity and a very small self. So what is, if we're not elevating and we're not putting ourselves down, then what are we doing? We're bowing. We are offering. We are on the cushion. As for myself, as soon as I start to compare myself, I'm in trouble. Right there, I've separated. As a filmmaker, it's almost impossible. If you're at a film festival, not to compare, right? Some people get awards, some people get screenings, some people don't even get in it. And so are we looking at that to define our value? How are we doing that? Is it going to boost us up? Is it going to push us down? It's hard, hard. And then when you're there, you have to talk about how great you are and what your project is so great. It's so great. Or just beat yourself up because you know you're just faking it. It's a challenge. It's challenging in this culture that elevates everybody. And then why do we decide they know something or they don't? Or we do and we don't? What is that? Usually it's coming from looking at outside instead of turning around, you know, and jumping into the water. and accepting that there isn't an outside and an inside, which is what they're talking about here. Neither outside nor inside in this emptiness. And when the Dharma body is manifested, there's not even a single square inch of soil on the ground. And suddenly, we all have something to offer. It's just hard to believe sometimes. But we do all have something to offer, and I think that's a very different place to respond to the world from than, am I good enough? Or why can't I be like that? Or let me tell you something. I know what I want to tell you. And luckily, our practice does point to the fact that you shouldn't listen to your teachers. You really shouldn't. And if you are putting them on a pedestal, just check and make sure and see if you're one of those drug slurpers that we hear about a lot, right? And that's why we tend to say, please wash all of these words out of your ears when we're done talking. And that's why we have such a beautiful opportunity for so many voices to be heard here, I think, which is a beautiful thing, without any sort of criteria, but just to hear the voice of somebody else's unique experience, hopefully, can help support our practice and our life. If I can assume responsibility, Shunryu Suzuki says, in the deepest sense, then the truth of what's right here, what's happening, makes freedom and compassion possible. And this is what we call being with what is. So, can I be with my uncomfortable pitching of myself, or my recognizing that I'm comparing? Can I share my point of view without knowing that I'm right and it's the only point of view? Can I listen to yours and yours? I remember Enkyo Roshi talking about the street retreats that she used to go on. And she was still a teacher at NYU. I don't think we have had them lately. The teacher who led them isn't around these days. But we would go, you could go out and live on the streets for a few nights and sleep in the shelters as a way of really just experiencing this other way of life and perhaps recognizing what you try to put yourself above. And she said she never got over sitting out with a little jar begging for a cup of coffee and seeing some of her fellow professors walk by and not even glance, not even know it was her, not even look down for a second. I don't have a clock, so I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to leave us with just a few verses from Thich Nhat Hanh's poem, Please Call Me by My True Names. My joy is like spring, so warm, it makes flowers bloom all over the earth. My pain is like a river of tears, so vast, it fills the four oceans. Please call me by my true names, so I can hear all my cries and my laughter at once, so I can see that my joy and pain are one. Please call me by my true names, so I can wake up and the door of my heart could be left open, the door of compassion.